Let's get right into this YSL trial, man. Man, listen, I'm going to tell you something. Last week's update, I talked to y'all about them potentially impeaching the witness, which is Trontavia Stevens. So I didn't fully understand how, I read and I know what impeachment is as a witness, but I didn't know what the process looked like. So pretty much I thought they were going, at that point when they decided it was time to impeach him, I thought they would just stop testimony right then and just make a plea to the judge or whoever they need to make this plea to say let's throw his testimony out. But I guess that's not how it works. So they let him finish his testimony on Monday, which once they finished, it felt like wow, this thing felt like it was never going to end. But once they finished up his testimony, then they pretty much started to, they did I don't want to call it off the record. I don't know what it's called when the prosecution, the defense is talking to the judge, but the jury is not in there. So they did that sidebar. I don't know what you call it, but they did that for a while and they had been arguing back and forth about admissibility of new evidence. So they pretty much spent the rest of the week arguing about what new evidence that can be presented in this case because of what just happened with Trontavia Stevens. They also talked about the matter of impeachment of Trontavia Stevens. So, man, it's a lot to get to. I know this will be considered to many as a boring week of trial. It wasn't eventful, right? But to me, I'm gonna call it right now. This week right here was the most pivotal week. This is the week that will define the outcome. I don't care, and I'm about to tell you why. This week, though, is going to define the outcome because of the arguments that's being made right now during the week that we just seen are essential to the way the rest of this case is going to go. And it's essential to how cases in the future are going to go, especially when they're going up against gangs like this or supposed gangs like this that have a lot of money and resources where they can get witnesses to get on a stand and kind of like play with the state. You know what I'm saying? So nobody is accusing YSL of threatening Trontavia Stevens to make him give that type of testimony. But the state clearly didn't anticipate Trontavia Stevens giving them that type of testimony. And they also are now probably anticipating other people to do the same thing. Other people who took plea deals to do the same thing. So now, first of all, one of the main things that was argued this week by Brian Steele and his team was the case of lyrics in court. Now, it wasn't specific. It wasn't just generally lyrics in court. Last week, Trontavia Stevens was asked by the state prosecutor, how many songs do you know how many songs Young Thug mentioned being truly humble in God? And like, what songs does he ever rap about that for us to actually believe that that's what Thug stands for? He was like, he pretty much was like, I can't answer that question under duress right now, not in this situation because you're kind of pressuring me and it's hard for me to think. Then he kind of rambled on for a little bit. Then he came up with a song, and the song was called Dropping Jewels, right? So when he brought up Dropping Jewels, and she said, well, what did he say in that song to make you think he was talking about God or being truly humble under God or whatever? And he pulled a lyric out of his hat, right? Which is good on him. Sharp thinking. Good for him. So it made us say, dang, he came up with that pretty fast. But then the state got the weekend to figure out what they was going to do with that because he pulled a fast one on them. So the state couldn't, they probably was deliberating, figuring out. Then they realized, like I said earlier, a few weeks ago, the state can't go forward with certain line of questioning unless the witness gives them the information first. Then they could build on what the witness gives them. Dropping Jewels wasn't part of this case. But because Trontavia Stevens introduced it into the case by mentioning that song and giving lyrics, then Monday came around and the state came and pretty much read the lyrics to almost the rest of it. They didn't say every line, but they pretty much went down the lyrics of the rest of the song and said, and it sounded crazy. Like the lyrics not that it sounded crazy because that's how rappers rap a lot of times, especially if they're street rappers. But when you're in a trial for your life and you have to just read these lyrics without a beat, without any context, without anything, you just have to read these lyrics out loud. And you're talking about killing people and you're talking about this and that. It sounds bad to a jury. So that happens. And here's a major thing that I noticed, right? So that happens and the prosecutor's asking Trontavia Stevens, like, what is this line? Does this line have anything to do with being truly humble unto God? And we're talking about crazy lines. And Brian Still objects. He's saying that's speculation. Pretty much Trontavia Stevens can't speak to what Young Thug meant in this line. And the judge overruled Brian Still's objection. Hold that point, right? So then they're going through, and she pretty much did that with all the rest of these lyrics, just letting the jury hear. And she's emphasizing certain curse words. She's emphasizing certain points of that would help make her case. Pretty much that all the violent stuff. She emphasized it. So then Brian Still comes back on cross-examination, and he says to Trontavia Stevens, he pretty much is saying, like, what does dropping jewels mean? And they won't let him answer the question because the state objected. That's speculation. He can't say what Young Thug meant when he came up with that lyric. And the judge actually sustained the state's objection. So when the state asked Trontavia Stevens to speak to what Young Thug meant, the judge Glanville, brother man, you allowed Trontavia Stevens to answer that, even though the defense objected to it. Same exact reason, speculation. He can't speak to what Young Thug knows, what Young Thug meant in that line, right? You objected. I mean, you overturned or overruled Brian Still's objection, but then the exact opposite happens when when the state objects to him being able to speak to what Young Thug meant. So that right there is completely out of line. And I'm talking about this. This literally happened within maybe an hour of each other. This wasn't like days apart, weeks apart. This was right. It felt like back to back when I was watching it live. I'm like, whoa, he just allowed this 30 minutes ago. And now he's not allowing Trontavia Stevens to speak to what this song means now. He just let him speak to what it meant, even through an objection. Okay, so drop pretty much what Brian Still's argument was, and he really couldn't get it out, but he was trying to get this out, is that Dropping Jewels is a song about giving lessons to his kids or giving lessons to young people. If you do these things, you will get these consequences. And in our world, we know that Dropping Jewels means to give somebody game and give guidance and all that type of stuff. But when you just, like I said, when you just read the lyrics as they are and you don't have any context to it, it sounds crazy. You see what I'm saying? But so they go through that whole thing, and then they finally tell Trontavia Stevens, you can go ahead. The state was satisfied with what they did, and they felt like I guess they had enough for this impeachment thing to go forward, right? So then when Brian Still started to do his argument thing, and I'm talking about Brian Still really like went off on the judge. He was like, I said this, I've never seen a lawyer lay his life on the line for a client the way Brian Still was doing for Young Thug. I'm talking about, I've never seen nothing like this. Honestly, we want our lawyers to fight for us like that if we have a lawyer in a criminal defense case. But with Brian Still, I never seen nobody argue as passionately for Young Thug being a great guy and a great human being like he's doing. And that's his job. That's what he's supposed to do. But I'm just saying I've never seen it. This is my first time seeing it. I'm talking about all of the cases. We've seen a lot of different cases. I've never seen nothing like this. So Brian Still, they get in this little sidebar thing without the jury in the room. And Brian Still is arguing, Judge, because the prosecutor, Attorney Love, sat up in here and read all of these lyrics to the song, it's my right to play the song now. You should let me play the song in front of the jury so that the jury can hear how he was performing it. He wasn't performing it with emphasizing the words that she was emphasizing. So pretty much Brian Still, his whole argument was that Attorney Love was emphasizing words that were not emphasized in the normal song. And the judge is like, who cares about? That's not a point that's not really a point for real. She has the right to emphasize any word that she wants to. All attorneys do when they're trying to make their case. They're not going to repeat something. They have to repeat the same words, but they don't have to use the same tonal inflection that you use when you said it. They can emphasize any word they want as long as they say the exact word you said. You see what I'm saying? So that's what the judge is telling Brian Still. Brian Still was like, no, this is not right. You can't do this. You can't let her read those lyrics like that and then not allow me to defend it by playing the song in front of the jury. So they argued about that for a while. Brian Still went off on the judge. And surprisingly to me, the judge didn't really because the judge has been tripping this whole trial. But when Brian Still is going off on him, it's kind of like the judge felt him. So he just let him get it off. But he didn't really fight back. He just said, I hear you, but no, you can't play that song. He was like, because she introduced written lyrics into this thing based on what Trontavia Stevens gave her, because she introduced written lyrics, you can do the same thing. If you feel like she misquoted something or misrepresented something, you use the same format that she used, which is written lyrics, and you tell the jury what was misinterpreted or what was misread or what was misunderstood, whatever. And that's the only way you're going to be able to defend against that, because I'm not going to let you play the actual song or play a recording of the song or play Young Thug on Instagram rapping the song. He's like, I'm not allowing it. So, I mean, that argument lasted for a while. Like I said, Brian still was going off. And so he lost that argument. It's a wrap on that.